Welcome to the Dark Lord's Dispatch podcast. From the desk of Satan, Prince of Darkness, CEO of Hell Enterprises, Hell's Throne Room, Friday, October 31st, 2025. Satire disclaimer. Before Satan explains why his mental health expenditures now rival Belgium's GDP, while Border Patrol thugs tear-gas trick-or-treaters, let's be crystal fucking clear. This is satire. As in, not real news. Satan isn't actually filing insurance claims for demonic PTSD. The Prince of Darkness hasn't really hired 47 therapists to handle his staff's collective nervous breakdown. Lilith didn't actually spend 3 weeks at a trauma recovery center learning to process her rage about men who attack children in Halloween costumes. The Dark Lord's Dispatch is a work of political humor, featuring fictional demons, commenting on unfortunately very real events. Any resemblance to actual Border Patrol commanders, deploying chemical weapons against 5-year-olds dressed as Spider-Man, House speakers, keeping Congress closed to hide presidential pedophile connections, or aircraft carriers threatening Venezuela for oil while claiming it's about drugs, is, well, fuck, that shit actually happened. We're just having Satan point out that when demons need therapy to cope with human evil, maybe the problem isn't in hell. This is dark humor, folks. Blasphemous, profane entertainment designed to make you laugh while your government builds a $300 million ballroom during a shutdown and starves people into neurological submission. If you can't tell the difference between our fictional hell's mental health crisis and actual ICE agents being court-ordered not to attack children, that's not our problem. That's America's. Still here? Good. Remember, the real demons aren't in therapy in our fictional hell. They're in the actual administration using hunger as biological warfare, hiding Epstein files, and tear-gassing kindergartners. Now, let's get to the show, where Satan discovers that even eternal damnation has better health care than America. You're up, big guy.
Breaking. The mental health invoice from hell. Direct from hell's executive suite, where therapy receipts are sorted by trauma category. Mortals, do you have any fucking idea what demonic psychotherapy costs? Because I just got the October invoice, and it's more than Elon Musk paid for Twitter X, or whatever the fuck it's called. 3 weeks ago, I gave my entire staff mental health leave because human evil had become so transcendently stupid that it was causing actual psychiatric injury to beings designed to torture souls for eternity. Beelzebub developed a nervous tic every time Trump spoke. Mammon started crying during earnings reports. Belphegor couldn't even maintain professional apathy anymore. But today, one of them returns. Lilith insisted she was ready, said she'd processed her rage and developed healthy coping mechanisms. Then she saw what Gregory Bovino did to children in Chicago last weekend, and I watched her therapeutic progress evaporate faster than democracy in a second Trump term. The others are slowly coming back, too. They'll need to be at full strength for the upcoming holiday season, because if you thought MAGA Thanksgiving was going to be tense before, wait until families realize Grandma can't afford groceries, because Mike Johnson would rather protect Trump's Epstein connections than fund SNAP benefits. That's right. Johnson has kept Congress closed longer than a Radio Shack in 2025. This biblical hypocrite has cancelled more sessions than a therapist with commitment issues. Why? Because Arizona Representative Adelita Grijalva would be the 218th signature to force release of the Epstein files, and apparently keeping presidential pedophile connections secret is more important than, democracy. But we'll get to that clusterfuck in a moment. Oh, and I had the most fucked up visitor earlier this week. You're not going to believe who's been working undercover at a Waffle House in Alabama. But that mindfuck of a story comes later. First, let's hear from someone who just spent 3 weeks learning that violent rage isn't always the answer, but sometimes it's the only language fascists understand. Lilith, the floor is yours. Try not to manifest physically and strangle anyone. The insurance doesn't cover interdimensional assault anymore.
Thanks, boss. Mistress of Patriarchal Ruins coming to you from the newly renovated Feminist Fury Wing, now with meditation gardens and rage rooms. Darlings, 3 weeks of intensive therapy. 3 weeks of breathing exercises, cognitive behavioral therapy, and learning to sit with my anger instead of weaponizing it into apocalyptic vengeance. My therapist, a lovely 4,000-year-old djinn named Rashida, taught me to channel my rage into constructive action. So let me constructively say, Gregory Bovino is a pathetic, tiny-dicked, badge-wearing terrorist who gets his rocks off gassing children, and the only reason he isn't in prison is because America rewards masculine incompetence with government paychecks. Deep breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Just like Rashida taught me. Okay, let's review what this sack of militarized testosterone actually did, shall we? Last weekend, children in Old Irving Park, Chicago, were walking to a Halloween parade. Kids dressed as superheroes, princesses, dinosaurs, the kind of pure joy that makes existence bearable. And this fucking stormtrooper deployed tear gas on them. A federal judge, Sarah Ellis, who apparently has to serve as the adult supervision for these fascist toddlers, had to explain to this grown man that kids dressed in Halloween costumes walking to a parade don't pose an immediate threat to a law enforcement officer. She literally had to say those words, out loud, to a man with a gun and a badge. But here's what makes my newly therapized soul scream. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a split-second decision. Bovino has been caught on video personally throwing tear gas canisters at protesters. He didn't even have a body camera while leading Operation Midway Blitz, because accountability is kryptonite to authoritarian thugs. The judge ordered him to appear in court daily, like a fucking child who can't be trusted not to shit himself without supervision. Mayor Brandon Johnson called him a barbaric individual, which is honestly like calling cancer a bit of a health concern. You want to know what toxic masculinity looks like? It's a grown man so threatened by community solidarity that he attacks children. It's the kind of performative violence that screams, "My daddy never hugged me, and now everyone must suffer." But here's what therapy taught me, and what I want every woman listening to this to understand. Men like Bovino aren't strong. They're terrified. Terrified of losing control. Terrified of communities that protect each other. Terrified of children who might grow up in a world where his kind of violence isn't rewarded with power. And speaking of mental health, because unlike Bovino, I believe in accountability and growth, I want to thank Satan for supporting his staff's psychological needs. You know what real strength looks like? It's recognizing when you need help and getting it. It's doing the work to process trauma instead of inflicting it on others. I spent 3 weeks learning that my rage, while justified, needed direction. Rashida helped me understand that my fury at patriarchal violence wasn't the problem. It was sacred, actually. The problem was letting it consume me instead of fuel me. So I'm back, renewed, focused, and ready to document every single way these masculine disasters are destroying your world, while dressed up as protection. Bovino's out there tear-gassing babies because he's too emotionally stunted to handle people telling him no. Meanwhile, I just spent 3 weeks in intensive therapy learning to channel 10,000 years of rage into something productive. Who's the real threat to society? Signing off with therapeutic clarity and crystallized contempt, Lilith, gender politics analyst. Now with 30% better coping mechanisms. Back to you, boss.
Satan's Special Report, The Four Horsemen of the American Apocalypse. From the Hellfire News Desk, where even the screams are more honest than cable news. While Lilith was learning to process rage without committing interdimensional war crimes, I've been documenting the absolute clusterfuck that is your current reality. 4 particular flavors of fuckery require immediate attention. 1. The Epstein Files hostage situation. Mike Johnson, and let me be clear, this man makes Judas look like a stand-up guy, has kept the House of Representatives closed since September 19th. September 19th. Do you understand what this means? The People's House has been shuttered longer than a Spirit Halloween in January, all to prevent one vote. Adelita Grijalva won her election on September 23rd. She should have been sworn in immediately. But she's the 218th signature needed to force release of the Epstein files, and apparently protecting Trump's potential pedophile connections is more important than, I don't know, fucking democracy. Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays filed a lawsuit to compel House Speaker Mike Johnson to swear in Representative-elect Grijalva. Taxation without representation, she called it. You know that thing you allegedly fought a revolution over. But Johnson would rather violate the Constitution than risk exposing which powerful men were raping children on Epstein's Island. And before you think I'm exaggerating, Johnson literally sent Congress home early, specifically to avoid this vote. He's cancelled session after session. He's given shifting and absurd excuses. He's done everything except his actual fucking job. You want to know why? Because those files likely have Trump's name all through them like termites in a condemned building. This isn't governance, it's obstruction of justice wearing a prayer breakfast mask. 2. The $300 million party palace. While the government is shut down, while people are missing paychecks, while SNAP benefits hang by a thread, Donald Trump is demolishing the historic East Wing to build a $300 million ballroom. Or maybe it's $330 million now. Budget overruns and such. Let that sink in. Your president destroyed a piece of American history to build a party room that costs more than most schools' annual budgets during a fucking shutdown. But wait, it gets better. He fired the entire U.S. Commission of Fine Arts when they might have objected. Just fired them. Because nothing says democracy like purging oversight to build your personal Versailles. The donors funding this obscenity, Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft, all buying access to power with tax-deductible bribes. Satya Nadella made $96.5 million last year, while Microsoft funds Trump's ballroom. Jeff Bezos's Amazon settled a $2.5 billion fraud case while writing checks for Trump's party palace. And the Arc de Trump. This narcissistic fuck wants to build a monument to himself that he literally said should be the large one, while giggling like a toddler showing off his blocks during a shutdown, while people can't afford food. 3. The Venezuela oil heist. Pete Hegseth just moved the USS Gerald R. Ford carrier group from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean. The official line: counter-narcotics operations. The real reason: Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, plus lithium, cobalt, and rare earth minerals that Trump desperately wants. They've killed 43 alleged drug smugglers without trial. No evidence, no due process, just execution at sea while claiming they're fighting cartels. You know what we call that in hell? Wednesday. But you're supposed to be better than us. Maria Corina Machado, Venezuela's opposition leader, just dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump. Not to her people, not to democracy. To the orange fascist she hopes will invade her country so she can rule the ashes. It's regime change dressed up as drug war, and everyone knows it. But here's the part that should terrify you. Trump's floating the idea that a war could justify postponing elections. He said it, out loud, in a meeting about Ukraine. This carrier group isn't just threatening Venezuela. It's a test run for permanent emergency powers. 4. The Hunger Games disguised as policy. The SNAP benefits crisis isn't incompetence, it's biological warfare. I came across this neuroscience analysis of deliberate starvation, and holy fuck, even I didn't realize how scientifically evil this is. When you starve people, you trigger chronic stress that literally rewires their brains. The prefrontal cortex, where planning, resistance, and protest live, goes dark. Cortisol floods the system. The body shifts into survival mode, where obedience becomes biological necessity. This isn't new. It's how feudal lords controlled peasants. It's how slaveholders broke spirits. It's how every empire has manufactured compliance. But you've perfected it with neuroscience. You're using hunger to edit human consciousness at the cellular level. A regulated nervous system is a revolutionary one. A hungry, exhausted, stressed population can't resist. They know this. They've always known this. The cruelty isn't a bug. It's the fucking operating system. Okay, now from the archive of shit too weird, even for hell. So, about that visitor I mentioned in the opening. 2 nights ago, I'm reviewing the quarterly trauma reports when my office door opens. No knock, no announcement. Just the overwhelming smell of industrial cooking oil and minimum wage despair.
Howdy, Satan, brother. We need to talk.
I know that voice, but the accent is completely fucking wrong. I turn around and nearly choke on my own sulfur. It's Jesus, the actual Son of God, wearing a grease-stained Waffle House uniform with a name tag that says Jesse, and speaking with a drawl thicker than Georgia molasses. "The fuck happened to you?" I ask. He slumps into my guest chair, pulls out a gas station coffee that looks like it's been reheated 6 times, and sighs deeper than the Mariana Trench.
Been working the 3rd shift at a Waffle House outside Birmingham,
he says, and sweet damnation, that accent.
Daddy sent me undercover to figure out what in heaven's name is happening with these MAGA folks.
I stare at him. You've been slinging hash browns.
3 months, brother. 3 months of watching folks pray over scattered, smothered, and covered while wearing red hats that might as well say Caesar is Lord. You know what I seen at 3 a.m.? Things that make crucifixion look merciful.
He takes a sip of his coffee, grimaces, continues drinking it anyway.
Last Tuesday,
He says,
watched a man wearing a cross necklace refuse to serve a homeless veteran because Trump says they're all grifters now. The week before, had a woman tell me, while I'm literally flipping her eggs, that Trump is more Christian than me because he's hurting the right people.
Jesus, I say.
That's what I said too, but they didn't recognize the irony. Or me. Though one lady said I looked familiar and asked if I'd been on Duck Dynasty.
He pulls out a small notebook, grease-stained and coffee-ringed.
Been keeping notes. You want to hear my favorite? Had a pastor come in, a pastor Satan, order the all-star special, then spend 20 minutes explaining how Mary and Joseph would have been turned away from Egypt if they were illegals. I nearly burned his toast out of spite, but Daddy says I can't do the miracle stuff while undercover.
Why the Waffle House? I ask.
Because that's where America's soul shows itself at 3 a.m. No pretense, no Sunday clothes, just raw, unfiltered humanity covered in syrup. And brother.
He pauses, looks me dead in the eye.
They've lost their damn minds worse than when they wanted Barabbas.
He stands up, straightens his polyester uniform.
Had a man last night, Satan, tell me that tearing down the East Wing for Trump's ballroom was biblical because Solomon had a palace. When I pointed out Solomon's vanity led to the kingdom's destruction, he told me to shut up and refill his coffee.
So what's heaven's assessment? I ask.
That is considering options. Michael wants to sound the trumpets. Gabriel's pushing for another flood, sustainably sourced water this time. But me? I think y'all are doing a fine job destroying yourselves without supernatural intervention.
He heads for the door, then turns back.
Oh, and Satan? That Bovino fella who gassed the children? Heaven's got a special file on him. Daddy's particularly interested in folks who hurt kids in his name. Old Testament interested, if you catch my meaning. He'll be in touch.
That's ominous coming from you.
Well, I spent 3 months watching these folks claim my name while doing everything I preached against. My patience is thinner than Waffle House coffee, and that's saying something.
He pauses at the door.
One more thing. That carrier group heading to Venezuela, that ain't about drugs any more than my job at Waffle House is about the cuisine. It's about control. Always has been. These folks want an empire, and they're willing to postpone democracy to get it.
You're telling me things I already know, I point out.
And I'm telling you, heaven's watching. And for the first time in 2 millennia, we're having serious discussions about whether humanity is salvageable. The free will experiment might have run its course. See you around, Satan.
And with that cheerful fucking note, he vanishes, leaving only the lingering smell of hash browns and humanitarian crisis. And now, my closing thoughts. When heaven and hell agree you're fucked. So, there you have it, mortals. My chief gender politics analyst needs therapy to cope with your toxic masculinity. The Son of God is slinging hash browns to understand your moral collapse. Congress is held hostage to hide pedophile connections. Your president builds monuments to himself while starving the poor. Your military threatens wars for oil while pretending it's about drugs. And the worst part, the absolute fucking worst part, this is all by human design. The hunger that makes you docile, the spectacle that keeps you distracted, the fear that makes you compliant, the lies that make you doubt reality itself. It's not incompetence, it's engineering. Mike Johnson knows exactly why he's keeping Congress closed. Trump knows exactly why he's building that ballroom. Hegseth knows exactly why that carrier is heading south. They all know exactly what they're doing. And now, thanks to Jesus's reconnaissance mission, heaven knows too. You want to know the difference between hell and America right now? In hell, the torture has a purpose, punishment for sins committed. In America, the torture is the purpose, control for sins planned. My demons are coming back slowly, taking their time to prepare for what's coming. Because if you think this is bad, wait until the holiday season, when families gather to discover Grandma chose between medicine and food. When parents explain why Santa can't come this year, when the conversations turn to why Uncle Mike still supports the man who did this to them. That's when the real hell begins, the one you create for each other, the one my demons can't even watch anymore without professional help. But here's what neither heaven nor hell expected. Some of you are still fighting. Adelita Grijalva is still demanding to be sworn in. The Arizona AG is still suing. Judges are still ordering accountability. Communities are still protecting each other from ICE raids. People are still demanding the truth about Epstein. That resistance, that refusal to break despite the biological warfare being waged against you, that's why heaven hasn't given up entirely. That's why Jesus is taking notes instead of calling down fire. That's why even I, Satan himself, am documenting this instead of celebrating it. Because maybe, just fucking maybe, enough of you will realize that the real demons aren't in hell. They're in your government, your police departments, your mega churches, and your boardrooms. And maybe you'll finally do something about it. But probably not. After all, Trump's ballroom is going to be really nice for the oligarchs' parties while you starve. See you next week, mortals, if there is a next week. Jesus seemed pretty concerned about those contingency plans heaven's discussing. Eternally yours in darkness and disbelief, Satan. P.S. Lilith wants me to add that any ICE agent reading this should know that Hell's HR department is not hiring. We have standards, low standards, but standards nonetheless. P.P.S. Jesus left his Waffle House visor in my office. It says, scattered, smothered, and saved on it. I can't tell if that's intentional irony or just Alabama.
Satan would like to thank you for listening to the Dark Lord's Dispatch. This podcast is public, so feel free to share it with other worthless souls. Now, go away.